has served the Georgia Department of Transportation for over 13 years and is currently the Assistant State Traffic Engineer. She manages GDOT's active traffic management components for Georgia's freeways, including TMC operations and ITS infrastructure. Christina previously served as the D6 traffic engineer in North Georgia. She graduated from Georgia Tech, and received a bachelor's and master's in civil engineering. Co-hosting is one of my favorite people, Chris Gallien, not Hallian. Chris Gallien, he's a traffic operations ITS team leader and project engineer with HNTB. He earned his bachelor's degree from Louisiana State University and master's degree from Kennesaw State, both in civil engineering. Chris has nearly 8 years of professional experience with background in traffic operations, analysis, and modeling, ITS, and safety. His primary focus at HNTB is assisting clients as a project manager with traffic operations, ITS, and safety projects. Chris is a licensed professional engineer in the state of Georgia. All right, there you go.
Cool. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you had an enjoyable lunch. I probably look pretty familiar. My name is Christina Berry, and I'll be presenting today alongside Chris Gallien on the Acres Mill Express Lane project. We'll go through our role on the project and how we were able to successfully support opening the ramp to traffic earlier this year. We also have some GDOT 511 trinkets for some interactive questions, and so we'll be asking some questions as we go along. If you do answer a question correctly, please see us afterwards, and we will give you your swag. All right, so there's 4 main takeaways that we'd like everybody to leave this presentation with. The first one is that collaboration is key. So this project required extensive collaboration with several stakeholders, including GDOT, CERTA, Cobb County DOT, Cumberland CID, and a host of contractors, consultants, and teaming partners. Number 2, there is no such thing as over-communicating. So we met extensively with the project team to ensure milestones were on track, and Chris will give you kind of a rundown of how that happened a little bit later in our presentation. And we established working groups with several SMEs and leaders. Number 3 is test often and test always. So with this being a reversible system, extensive testing throughout the project was critical, including individual device testing and full-scale end-to-end testing. And then last, but certainly not least, as with all projects, things come up that require being flexible and adaptable to ensure projects are completed safely and to the highest quality. So number 4 is be flexible. And you'll see how we had to do that a little bit later in our presentation. Before jumping into the Acres Mill project, I'd like to provide some brief history on the Northwest Corridor Managed Lanes project. The Northwest Corridor opened back in 2018, and it spans from Windy Ridge, then it spanned from Windy Ridge Parkway along I-75 corridor to Hickory Grove and along I-575 from 75 to 6's Road. And there's a map of the corridor as it looked then. This facility also included 2 express lanes on the west side of the existing lanes along I-75 between I-285 and I-575. And although the Northwest Corridor provided an alternative paid access route along the north side of Atlanta, there was no connection to the Cumberland CID area. And the Cumberland CID, as many as you probably know, it serves as a major commercial activity center. It's one of the largest employment centers in the state, and it's home to major entertainment venues such as the Atlanta Braves Stadium and mixed-use area, as well as Cumberland Mall. And so this connection was something that was desired, and so the Atlanta Regional Commission, Cumberland CID, GDOT, CERTA, and others pooled funds together to fund the Acres Mill project, which started in October of 2021. The project was completed as a design bid build through the Office of Program Delivery with GDOT District 7 leading the charge of overseeing construction throughout the duration of the project. In this slide, I'm going to provide a little bit more info on our reversible express lane system, which, as you know, are toll lanes where the direction of traffic can be flipped to help manage congestion and increase capacity. While the direction of travel is typically set based on peak commuting hours, the direction can also be changed to assist with traffic flow for major events, incidents, or hurricane evacuations to ensure the lanes flow in the direction with the greatest travel demand. So lane reversals are performed by our TMC operators using our ATMS software, as well as with our hero operators supporting from the field. The hero operators sweep the express lanes to ensure that there's no stalled vehicles, debris, or anything that would pose a safety risk to motorists. They also verify messages and symbols shown on the dynamic message signs and traffic signals, and they assist with issues related to gate functionality. And so as each access point is either closed or open, the hero driver is going to watch the gates open or watch them close, and then also look at the signs and make sure that they're displaying the appropriate message. And if they're not, then he can assist with that from the field if needed. The hero operators also maintain constant communication with the TMC operators throughout the duration of the reversal. And the TMC operators currently operate using two systems. So the first one is RACS, which stands for Roadside Access Control System, and Chameleon, which is our backup software. All right, so this is our first pop quiz. So pop quiz. And if you know, or if you work for AECOM and you do this, please don't answer. So how long does it take to reverse the Northwest Corridor? All right, yes, that's correct. So 2 hours. So please come up afterwards and get your swag. And then number two, which takes longer to reverse, the Northwest Corridor or the South Managed Lanes? That is correct. So the Northwest Corridor takes longer to reverse because it's longer. It's 30 miles in length, and the South Managed Lanes are only approximately 12 miles in length, so that does not take as long. All right. So now that we've provided some background of how the Acres Mill project came about and how the reversible system works, we'll now go over the go-live approach. Construction of the ramp began back in October 2021, and in early 2024, the project began approaching substantial completion. So with us approaching substantial completion, that meant that the GDOT Office of Traffic Operations, with support from HNTB, were tasked with leading the charge of employing the go-live approach used in the Northwest Corridor and the South Managed Lanes projects, which began with establishing a collaborative dream team of working groups and committees. Now I'll turn it over to Chris to discuss this approach more.
Thank you, Christina, and I just want to thank Georgia Section ITE for the chance to come and present about one of my favorite projects. And Taylor, you're also one of my favorite people too, and I'm not saying that just because I work for you. It's my boss, I have to say that. No, I really enjoyed this project, and this project was really monumental in terms of it being, you know, the first access point added to the system since it was initially opened back in 2018. So like Christina mentioned, the first thing we did was we established a dream team. And so, like she said in her first slide, collaboration was key, and there's no such thing as over-communicating. While that is true, we were over-communicating a little much at the beginning with all these working groups. And so you'll see as I transition the slides that we combine these working groups at a logical point. So if you imagine when we first kicked off this project, we had 7 groups of folks meeting on a consistent basis, whether that was weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. And it was to a point where they were meeting more than working, so we needed them to stop meeting and start working on the project so we can get it open, right? IT and systems was so special that they got their own working group. So they did not combine with another working group because, you know, they was talking about software upgrades, and all of us are traffic engineers, so they needed their own space. So they stayed in their own working group. And so kind of these folks culminated the dream team, which we put an Olympic gold medal to honor the Olympics, which came to Atlanta in '96, which is also part of TMC's history. So steering committee was kind of the decision makers of the project. Communications, because this project impacts the public, we wanted to make sure we were positioning our communication staff to inform their constituents of project updates, pertinent milestones that were upcoming. And then we have regional partners here, which included Cumberland CID, Cobb County DOT, as well as CERTA. And this emoji just happens to look like me and Christina shaking each other's hands. We worked together a lot during the project. That wasn't on purpose, it just kind of happened like that. And then we had construction, ITS, signals and tolling, and incident management. And so again, we had a lot of the same folks in these working groups, so it made sense to just combine them into three. So with this project being somewhat accelerated, we tried to figure out ways to have parallel paths. So while construction was ongoing, we were training the TMC operators on how to use these systems, which they use on a daily basis, but because we're adding new access points, it necessitated training with TMC operators, CERTA operators, as well as HERO. Like Christina mentioned, all of these people play integral parts in the express lanes being safely transitioned. And so we did extensive training. I think me and Taylor lived at the TMC for about 6 months. In the basement, I think there's some cots. We didn't actually live there, but on the second floor actually. So no, we was at the TMC pretty much every week trying to help the operators get trained up on the new access point. And so we just pulled a picture here. If you know anything about me, I take pictures all the time. And so we took a lot of pictures as we was documenting the process. And so you see in this picture, we have Taylor and myself, we have CERTA operators, and as well as TMC operators, training them on how to address the new access point. And then as we transitioned from training, we went into testing. And so, again, the project was accelerated. It was a lot of, coordination with the schedules. And so as soon as devices were installed in the field, we immediately tested them to ping them from chameleon and racks to make sure that they weren't just, operational from a physical standpoint, but that the system can actually communicate with those devices. Some of these pictures may or may not be staged. That's for your imagination, but we did take these pictures while we were working at the TMC. But again, we wanted to do this safely. This project in comparison to a typical ramp is unique because it's on a reversible system. And so before any car is accessed, we wanted to make sure everything was adequately tested. Which leads to my next slide, which is end-to-end testing. And so kind of just following the sequence. We tested individual devices. We tested individual warning gates, barrier gates, signals, RAM meters. And then this was the dress rehearsal. This was, if you're married, this was your rehearsal dinner before the wedding, because we wanted to make sure that the system operated cohesively from end to end. And so what this looked like was a Saturday at the TMC. So I don't know how you spend your weekends, but we were at the TMC on a Saturday at 6 a.m. and it was great. And so we started off in a closed state for the system, and then we went from closed to northbound, and then northbound to southbound. And so again, because we tested individual devices, we tested the entire system together to make sure there was no bugs or there was no issues. And what was really cool about this test is we actually allowed the public to access the system as they normally would, just not at Acres Mill because it was still under construction. But for the Acres Mill access point, we had test vehicles that were actually able to access the ramps. And so we had HERO helping us with maintenance of traffic to make sure motorists didn't actually go into the ramp via Acres Mill until it was officially open. And again, going along with the same theme, take a lot of pictures. So we got some pictures here. Some of these we may look a little delirious because we were at the TMC on a Saturday at 6 a.m. But again, we had a really good time, and I jokingly say that, but this was really an amazing project, and it brought together some of the most intelligent minds in the ITS space. I do want to shout out Mark Demidovich. He works at HNTB, and he was like a 30-year GDOT vet and retired and came over to work for us, and he was integral in the project as well as Taylor. Again, I work for him, so I want to give him some kudos as well. All right, so kind of transitioning, I'll be handing it back to Christina in a little bit. But with this project being such an impact to the public, we wanted to make sure we were on the forefronts of communications and outreach. So HNTB has a communications team that works on a lot of P3 and MIP projects. So we employed their skill set, and we had them develop some FAQ sheets. We had them develop some social media blasts and some graphics. And we made the news, which I'll show in a subsequent slide here in a minute. Hopefully this will play. So you can see it light up at different points, but you can see, and I won't talk through it as it's going through because it goes a little quick. But this graphic just kind of informed the public in a very simplified way on how to exit the system if you want to continue on the general purpose, how to exit the system at Acres Mill and to go either direction, and then how to enter the system when from Acres Mill when it's operating in the northbound direction. And so we had our graphics folks kind of help us with this little graphic to help inform the public. And these FAQ sheets are still available online. So if you Google Acres Mill Express Lane Project and navigate to the page for the project, you'll see all of these fact sheets and graphics. If anybody's worked on a perfect project with no challenges, let's connect after. And I want to know your secrets and figure out how you've done that. As with all projects, they come with challenges. They come with things you have to overcome. But I didn't want to just call it challenges, but overcoming challenges, because we face them head on and we work together as a team to overcome the challenges. One of the first challenges is it was an accelerated schedule, but it initially didn't take into account all of the ITS and software components, because you don't typically have those in a typical interchange or ramped or road widening project. So you have ITS burn-in periods, you have the 30-day burn, inspection, acceptance, testing, we're updating software. So we had to have a few meeting of the minds and agree on a schedule that worked for everybody and that factored every milestone into the project into one place. And so that wasn't necessarily easy, but we did it, and we got everybody to buy into a schedule that we all worked towards as we got closer to opening the ramp. This next screenshot is a screenshot from a CCTV stream. We were actually scheduled to do end-to-end testing this day. I thought we could do it. Personally, I thought we can push forward and have it, but nobody agreed with me, and we had to cancel end-to-end testing. No, I'm just kidding. Obviously, we wanted to make sure everybody was safe. So we did cancel end-to-end testing due to a snow event. And so we ended up having to kind of pivot our schedule because end-to-end testing was critical before opening the ramp to the public. So we had some snow days, and we had to pivot a little bit to make sure everything was done safely. So as I go to the next slide, the saying, "It's a wrap," well, we say it's a ramp. I didn't know if that would be funny or not, so tough crowd, I guess, but all good. But it's a ramp. I mean, that's what it boiled down to. We worked tirelessly for several months, and there was even folks that predated my involvement on this project that worked for years and years to realize this project. I do have a pop quiz though, and we have, I think, 2 available swag bags left. So the question is, and I'll ask 2 questions. And if you were at the TMC this day, you cannot answer this question. But I want to see if anybody would like to guess what kind of vehicle used the ramp first, and specifically, what was the color of the vehicle, and then what was the model? So that's 2 questions. White Ford? Not quite. Not quite. Not quite. All right, so you got black. So you get 1 point for that. So you get a swag bag. But it wasn't Toyota. It was. Who said Tesla? Yep, you got it. So it was a black gray. I would have taken gray too because it was like a black grayish pewter looking Tesla. I don't know if the sound will play, but we took a video. Imagine we was waiting. We worked on this project for months and years, all for somebody to make a left turn. We was waiting for almost years for this, and I don't think the sound will play, but I said let's go as they turned left, because we was really excited. I mean, this was the culmination of everything that we had worked on, all the working groups, all the meetings, all the coordination was for that moment. We made the news, so if you want to scan the QR code to see our news report, which is funny because we were all at the TMC and we just saw a random van pull up to the ramp. So I'm sure somebody knew about it, but I didn't, and we was wondering who this was. And then 5 minutes later, we all got news notifications that the ramp was about to open. So again, I'm honored that Georgia IT allowed us to come and present. I was honored to be able to work alongside Christina for this project. This was a transformational project, and she'll run through some data metrics in a couple of slides to show how many people are using this system, connecting it to one of the most busiest business districts in the state. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Christina. Thank you.
All right, so as I mentioned, opening and closing and changing the direction of the express lanes. So that is coordination between our TMC operators at the TMC, the CERTA operators, which are located right next to our operators at the TMC, and then also Hero in the field. So after this day where we watched the TMC operator and the CERTA operator open the lanes for the first time, we thought that we needed to get a more complete picture of how the express lane transition works. And so we did a ride along with Hero. And this is Jimmy Holmes. He's one of our most experienced Hero operators, and he was very kind to let us ride along with him and to answer all of our questions. And since the transition takes 2 hours once it gets started, and there's some other things he had to do, he was with us for quite a while, and we asked him a lot of questions. But he was very kind to answer all of those. And so just as a reminder, the Hero operators perform key functions of the reversal, including the initial corridor sweep to ensure there's no stalled vehicles or debris, etc. And then they can also do manual openings of the gates and signs when needed. And so when we did the ride along this day, we did the sweep south, and we actually did find a car that had run out of gas, and so they were sitting on the shoulder. And so Mr. Jimmy just helped them get gas and helped them get on their way. And that was the only issue that we found during the sweep. And then when we started the transition, everything went smoothly, so there was no cranking gates or anything like that in the field, and so it was a very smooth transition. We were happy for that, and we were able to see the Northwest Corridor Express Lane southbound to northbound transition in action from the Hero driver's perspective. Is this going to come up? Okay. Well, we did have a dashboard to show you. Can we get it? Okay. To show you kind of how it's going with the express lane. So we opened kind of towards the end of January, and so we saw a decent amount of traffic use it the beginning of January. It seems like now it's kind of ramped up, and we've seen, we have data that we've looked at through mid-June. It seems like it's about 12 to 13,000 people using it every day. And so it's getting a lot of use, and we're seeing that this project has been well worth it. All right, and this just shows a drone shot of the completed ramp and a capture of Chris and myself working at the TMC during opening day. And so thank you for listening, and we'll be glad to take any questions at the end. Thank you.
Great job, guys. Chris, you can keep your job. You did pretty good. We're going to move on. I'm going to introduce Catherine Johnson, and we're going to talk about TMC Active Incident Response. So Catherine Johnson, she is currently GDOT TMC's Operations Quality Manager at AECOM. She's a graduate of the University of Georgia, completing both her bachelor's and master's in engineering. With 8 years of experience in transportation operations and analytics, Catherine is always eager to learn and share her knowledge in her spare time. She enjoys cooking, eating, reading, painting, and video games. Let me get this to work.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Catherine Johnson, and I am your self-proclaimed data nerd, here to talk about TMC Active Event Response, non-recurring events and closures. We're going to look at 2 case studies today, one on 985 and one on 85. So I wanted to give you guys an introduction to these reports that we do. We call them after action reviews. Gonna go through a general definition, give you the purpose that we use them in traffic incident management, and overall the benefits that we have are continuous improvement, accountability, and coordination. In the right side, you can see just an overall screen capture of one of our after action reports. They generally follow the same structure: an event overview, a trend map showing, kind of where the event incident was, some key event statistics, some images if we have them, and then at the bottom, our FHWA timeline. But let's get into it. One of the key things about these incidents is how close they were together and the date range at which they were together. So our first event was on I-85. It was a tractor trailer crash, and it happened on January 11th. A little bit over 2 weeks later, our second event was a plane landing on 985. And with the close proximity of these in the same county, it was interesting just to see how things panned out. So let's get into our first event. We had a crash on I-85. There was a tractor trailer that ended up sparking a fire, and the fire was located underneath the sign gantry that you guys had. One injury, life flight was required, but overall, this tractor trailer was hauling tens of thousands pounds of dog food. So we lovingly refer to this as the dog food incident. Looking at our timeline of events, our FHWA timeline is obtained by our ATMS event details as well as RIDIS. RIDIS helps us get that T0 timeline of when the event starts. What we do is we pull our probe speed data, which comes from motorists in the area, and once we see that speed drop dramatically, we can assume that that's when traffic comes to a standstill, and shortly after or at that moment, the crash occurs. So for our FHWA timeline, we have the event clocked at 5:52 p.m. We verified it after we received the report. A couple minutes later, response was identified and dispatched, and they arrived on scene pretty quickly. Lanes were cleared at 10:44 p.m. However, normal flow and the entire event didn't clear until that following day, 1:15 in the morning. This right here is an image actually obtained from a citizen drone. So someone saw some smoke, decided to fly up a drone and captured this image. And just with a quick caption, we're going to just show that we had CHAMP, GDOT, emergency medical services, as well as our fire trucks and our police on scene. There was also a trip activation, and an excavator and dumpsters were used. Now, the interesting thing about this wasn't the tractor-trailer fire, because we know that that typically happens. It was the sign gantry that was burning underneath it. So once responders arrived on scene and they saw the fire burning, the question was, is this sign gantry stable? Is it safe for vehicles to pass through it? And that's ultimately what caused a bit of our communication snafu. You know, how are we going to get the sign gantry down? So for that crash management, we had motorists that were rerouted via Hamilton Mill. So you guys can see on that RIDIS screen capture, there's a dark red kind of line underneath it. They were working through there. We had our dynamic message signs and our floodgate alerts to let motorists know nearby, like, hey, you might want to reroute against this. And we had coordination with our local police department to try and get as many motorists around this crash as possible. As you guys can see, this is an image from RIDIS. We're using our trend maps, and the event was captured at 7:30 p.m., so right as those lanes were being closed. Another thing that we gather is our RIDIS crash performance metrics. Now for this, the roadway is closed, so it's kind of tricky. Whenever you have a roadway that's closed, only 2 or 3 vehicles can go through, so it might say, you know, something incredibly high if somebody's, you know, at the scene. So sometimes we can see irregularities with RIDIS, but overall, from that 6 to 8 period, it would take you over 4 hours to get through that area. But the roads were closed for an extended amount of time because we had such an intense situation. So wanted to just make sure that I showed that. And that was our dog food incident. Now let's move on to our next crash. We had a very interesting emergency landing of a small plane. Now, here's the story. We had a pilot in training that was flying up for the very first time, had their instructor in the back seat. They're doing their loops, they're cruising, having a good time. All of a sudden, their engine goes out and they're panicking. And they're like, what do I do? So the instructor behind him is like, calm down, don't panic, don't panic. Try and radio out to a radio tower. No response. Said, all right, well, this is gonna be an interesting learning experience. We're gonna have to land this plane. And that's what they did. So on the way down, this plane clips into a tractor trailer. The wing gets stuck. And then they have to slow down so that they can unjam from the tractor trailer. And then whoosh, they land right on 985. I'm so excited. They land right on 985. No injuries, just some complaints of sore knees. But now we have a problem. We've got a plane on the highway. So no injuries, but all lanes were blocked. Now, the key factor in this is that we had an after-action review meeting just days before this event happened. in the same area with the same people, and we had that conversation about how critical it was to get those lanes open. So what did we do? We made it happen. So again, RITIS has helped provide some of this timeline as well as ATMS. This event occurred at 4:15. We verified it immediately, had response dispatched. We arrived on scene getting through that traffic at 5:11. And within 2 hours, you guys, we had the lanes clear and this event was clear. What they did actually was they dismantled the plane enough to get it to be transported off to a nearby ramp. And then they took that opportunity to work on clearing it out. But they got that roadway open. We've got a couple of images from response. We had Champ and Hero working together. Champ provided advanced warning. So imagine that you're coming up to the crash, you see, a Champ vehicle that says, hey, got a big crash, all lanes blocked, might want a detour. That's a great way that Champ helps, just really smooth out that traffic. We also used Web EOC. We used our rave alerts, and we used our dynamic message signs to let everybody know, hey, there's a pretty big event going on. In that right corner, they were actually able to share the flight path with us from the plane. So you can see where they started and where they ended. So they took a couple of loops, and you can see, I wouldn't say the panic. You can't see panic, but I was imagining a little bit of panic. I would be panicked in that situation. I know you guys would too. All right, this is a very fun diagram that I created as we had to do detour routes for both northbound and southbound routes, and we cooperated with SIGOPS. We're able to say, hey guys, we got a little bit of a snafu going on here. You guys help us out. We're able to detour those routes and get signal adjustments so that we can, get people to where they needed to go. We also provided some congestion metrics. As we can see on RITIS, we can see again, because there's so few vehicles going through those lanes, we don't have the most accurate data, but travel times were definitely a lot higher than they should have been. One thing that we use RITIS for is our delay costs. So imagine that everybody that's in traffic at that time gets assigned a dollar value amount to their time. Whenever we take their delay and time, we can make an estimate of how many thousands of dollars an incident would cause as a holdup. Not saying that this many people, had to hold up, but overall 10,000 person hours of delay with everybody just coming through since 985, and the area is such a big area and a 6.2 mile bottleneck. So I reviewed the crashes. Let's go into those after action reviews. Oh, do you mind if I open up that PDF? All right. Where do we have it at? Boom, thank you so much. I wanted to share with you guys just an overview of what our after action report looks like. So we're able to see that we've got just our general information. We always start with a write-up of the area, our event statistics. So we'll provide just a review. And in the after action review meetings, I actually read this out to our stakeholders just so that, police or fire, because the after action review meeting may take place a week or so after the original event, it's good to just catch them up on what happened. So we've got the plane. You guys can see that right wing is impacted from where it hit the tractor trailer. So one plane, one tractor trailer involved. That tractor trailer driver is gonna have one story to tell for sure. 0 injuries, and we were able to track our Facebook and Twitter impressions from when we posted it on social media. So 6.7 thousand Facebook and Twitter impressions. Again, we've got our FHWA timeline, and then over here we've got sort of an event details of what took place. So we take our event details from ATMS and we kind of type them up into a more digestible format so that first responders or people that are on the scene are interested and they can find out that information. But it also helps us kind of see, where did we have any barriers in communication? Where could we improve? So always good to provide that. Going into our SIGOPS involvement, this very nice colorful map. And we went into the traffic signals that were managed. So we had State Route 20, Buford Drive, State Route 347, Friendship Road, State Route 13, Buford Highway, State Route 211, Georgia Highway 211. Just a good amount of signals. And then for this event, we had so many additional details, which I'm always here for the additional images, because I feel like it tells such a great story. So we've got some images from the 511 CCTVs, we've got that flight pattern, And then our performance results as we go into the bottom. And we can see our bottleneck as well as our user delay cost. So on an average Tuesday, it would be about $64,000 of delay. On the day of the event, it was about twice as many, so $118,000 of delay. And again, that's not saying how much it costs, but if you put a dollar amount to everybody that was in traffic. Nowadays, our after-action reports have taken a little bit of a facelift, so I wanted to share with you guys this one is a hazmat spill. We follow the same format where we provide the map and overall review of everything. For this, it was one tractor trailer. We had a lot of hazardous materials spilled, and it was hydrochloric acid. We provide our notification timeline. This spanned over several days. We had just as much detail as we can get. One of the things that was critical for this after-action review was that, hey, the environmental company that we called was a very long distance away from where the incident was, 213 miles, actually, from the area. And then for this one, we provided an additional timeline. Hey, hazmat took a while to get on scene. And then for our additional event images, we had some images of the hazardous materials that were in the tractor trailer. Now in this specific incident, there were pallets of a liquid that when leaked out, they vaporized and turned into an airborne kind of irritant. So that was interesting. And we can see, we're clearly missing a little bit of PPE from this person over here standing right next to it, as you guys can see. But this is what I wanted to show you guys. We have a schematic that we started adding just to kind of detail how we would like for these events to be shown. So we've got on the right shoulder our tractor trailer. We can also see EMA and EPD on scene, as well as our local police, and we've got several CHAMP units on scene, as well as our hazmat materials. I think having a visual representation of who's on scene is a great addition to our after-action reports and really helps put a picture to words of who was on scene, as well as timestamps. Now with that, I will go ahead and get back into our lessons learned. All right, communication and event management. Christina said it best. Collaboration is key and no such thing as over-communicating. Importance is placed on our early alerts, so RAVE and Web EOC. Also having those real-time updates to stakeholders, because as the event's going on, they're likely getting a lot of questions too. Making sure that we coordinate across jurisdictions is one of the biggest things that we drive through in our after-action reports, especially with local police. So we try and educate them on how, this is the best way to communicate. Did we hit a sign, or was it a sign gantry? Details like that. Also, utilizing CHAMP and HERO for that rapid response. Use of TRIP and heavy equipment to clear the scene quicker. Fuel offloading and aircraft towing. And then, again, collaboration with those local agencies. Some of our challenges that we have is communication gaps, as we mentioned. Medevac coordination issues. Sometimes life flight, to save people's lives, they need to land a plane or a helicopter, on the roadway, and they need the lanes to be clear enough so that they can land. Infrastructure damage and the extent, as well as just, again, coordination across jurisdictions. I put it in here twice because I wanted to drive it through. And our overall summary, our after-action reports are one of our critical tools for continuous improvement. Scalability to other regions and incident types is critical. It doesn't matter if it's a small incident or a big one. The more that we have these conversations, the better we can get these lanes open quicker. And then just integration with smart traffic systems. As we start to have new technologies, we're working our best to use them. And again, to keep our roadways clear and keep traffic moving. So with that, I will go ahead and leave you guys. Thank you so much.
Good job, Catherine. Next, last but not least, well, first I want to say I'm not going to learn how to fly a plane. That is petrifying. But I'm going to introduce Jack Ludwick. He graduated from the University of Georgia in 2019 with a bachelor's in civil engineering. He currently serves as the traffic signal timing specialist on AECOM's SIGOPS Metro East team, supporting signal optimization across the Cab, Gwinnett, and Rockdale counties. Jack specializes in coordinating signal timing, user logic programming, and data-driven traffic solutions aimed at improving corridor performance and operational efficiency. And Jack, let me get in your
presentation here. Floor is yours.
Oh, thanks, Catherine. We're doing mic check, mic check. So hey guys, most people hate traffic, but I kind of love it. Maybe not sitting in it, but I love working in the industry under the SIGOPS program, and excited to be presenting this project today. So we're going to be talking about one of our most challenging corridors in Gwinnett County. It's Peachtree Industrial Boulevard. Probably be calling it PIB for short throughout the presentation, but be going through this automated PM peak traffic flush plan that we've implemented to help address some of the bottlenecks that occur. So quick overview, I'll run through some of these slides, but the ops in SIGOPS has double meaning for both operations as well as optimization. So as a signal timing engineer, I pretty much get to decide how long the lights are green in each direction. We do take complaints, which we deal with a lot, but our team consists mostly of timing engineers like myself, as well as field technicians who, I call on for the most part to help fix detection issues. So flying through just detection and operations, I'm sure y'all are all familiar, but detectors act as a binary on-off switch that indicate whether a vehicle is in the detection zone. So standard types are inductive loops, which are my favorite, and I think give the best data. We also have video and radar units that can do the same thing. But super essential for basic operations, it allows signals to operate as actuated. So the signals will run dynamic green times from a minimum and a maximum set in the database. So detection and optimization comes into play with ATSPM. The detectors, give feedback, so we can look at a lot of different metrics like arrivals on green and split failures, and take those into account when we are adjusting signal timings. But the other thing that detection allows is the use of real-time data collection. So those two snips on the right are a volume and occupancy graph straight from MaxView. Standard, it's stored in 15-minute bins. So volume, simply the number of actuations that occur in that time period, and the occupancy is going to be the percent of the time that a detector is on. So getting to our corridor of interest here, this is the south portion of PIB. It's a 10-signal system. You can see it runs adjacent to I-85. And it is a highly directional corridor, so we're really focused on progressing traffic southbound in the morning towards Atlanta and reverse in the afternoon. So that's our typical pattern 10 for the morning, pattern 30 in the PM. I noted the limited access portion of PIB here. So this is an unsignalized section that stretches from 285 up to Holcomb Bridge Road. So that's kind of continuously just pushing demand up into our system in the evenings. So last year we went through our typical retiming process. We evaluate the existing conditions using ATSPM, looking at things like split failures to see what phases might not be getting fully served with the existing timings. We order turning movement counts and take those counts, we plug them into Synchro and come up with a proposed timing model. Once those new plans are developed, we program them in the databases, and then we get out there on the road for the field fine-tuning process. So that's simply going out, driving up and down, seeing what phases might need more green time, and adjusting the offsets, which is the relationship when one signal is going green or yellow relative to the next signal. So Medlock Bridge there is in red. And you can see the flag, it is smack dab in the middle of our system. And so despite, our best timing efforts, the signal continued to create a bottleneck that stretches down towards Holcomb Bridge and even spills onto that limited access portion of PIB. So bottleneck management, this is looking more specifically at Medlock Bridge Road. I don't know if that picture in the top right does it justice, but we have a very steep uphill grade approaching this signal. So that creates slow startup times for cars that are stopped on red. and then creates large headway. So this is just the space between vehicles. And so that uphill grade really just puts the damper on the efficiency and the amount of throughput we can get in the northbound direction. But like I mentioned earlier, this runs adjacent to I-85, and so it's a hot spot for detour demand. Anybody looking to avoid Spaghetti Junction might opt to get off of 285 early and take PIB instead. So step by step of the bottleneck, I'm sure y'all are all familiar with how these occur, but overcapacity approach northbound at Medlock Bridge leads to queue spillback. Our next signal there is Tech Parkway. And then once the spillback reaches that point, the platoons that start at our third signal down, which is Reps Miller, don't have any storage space to move into, so they kind of slam into the back of the queues at Tech Park. And from there, yeah, the gridlock conditions are starting to form, and we see a lot of blocking the box, and the one thing I think every driver hates the most. So here, bottleneck management, standard things that we might do for a more simple bottleneck is create alternate plans. So this can be programmed in the time of day scheduler. If you can count on traffic picking up 4:30 to 5:30 p.m., can create a copy of that PM peak pattern with adjusted splits, maybe add 10 seconds or so to that main line, the approach that's experiencing the bottleneck. But those TODs, they're preset, they're not flexible, so you might have some days where traffic picks up earlier at 4 p.m., might stretch later till 6 p.m., and so it's definitely not the best way to handle bottlenecks. So better than a pre-programmed plan, we have our ROC staff at AECOM. We've got somebody on call during the week, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., dealing with incidents. Not all of them are as exciting as the ones Catherine mentioned, like the Mission Impossible plane landing or the dog food incident. But that is what our ROC staff is focused on, is those unexpected lane closures and making manual adjustments for that. So simply have too many bottlenecks in the Metro East region for one person to be manually adjusting timing at all the different locations. So that's where user logic comes into play. It allows for automation, which saves time and effort. So here is our spotlight sentence. This is for your PDHs. If you remember nothing else from the presentation, I'm pretty proud of this sentence. I wrote it myself, no ChatGPT. But user programs allow timing engineers to identify opportunities to automate the recurring real-time manual adjustments that are needed to reduce daily traffic delays at overcapacity intersections. So through user programs, signals can automatically select traffic plans based on the parameters that we create. These signals actually end up responding to delays faster than a person can pick up on it. And overall, yeah, it just reduces the workload by the ROC staff. So in a nutshell, it's just advanced logic-based programming. There's essentially two steps. First, you're establishing variables that are local to the controller. This can be that real-time detection data, which we'll talk about, as well as the status of a peered signal it's communicating with. And then after establishing all the variables, ultimately you just place pattern inputs for the signal to automatically select based on what's going on in the field. So for this signal, PIB at Medlock Bridge, what do we want to do? First, like I described in that kind of bottleneck narrative, we want to detect when that phase 6, which is the northbound phase, when that queue spills back and starts impacting the next signal at Tech Park. And then next, we want to trigger a response to help manage that queue and prevent those gridlock conditions throughout the rest of the system. So a couple other parameters here that are included in our program statement. We've got PMP exclusive, so it's rush hour, PM peak, but we don't want this coming on overnight or during different times of the day. We need that peer configuration, so Medlock Bridge, which all of this this user program is all hosted in the one signal. But there's a little snip bottom right is the peer configuration. So that is what allows Medlock Bridge to read the pattern status of Tech Park. Yeah, and then detection fail-safes need to be included so that if we have like max presence alarms and occupancy is sitting at 100%, we don't want our flush plan running nonstop. And then ultimately, yeah, just figuring out what we want that trigger point to be. When is the Q spillback bad enough to trigger our plan? So we've got our standard pattern 30. We selected pattern 35 for the flush plan. And this is, the 12 program statements in all its glory. Kind of broke it down here. On the left, you can see what the different lines are doing, but it's pretty much, I think I kind of just went through this. We're returning the pattern status. So you can see the result 30 there. If it's showing up okay. Looks a little blurry on the screen, but yeah, returning the pattern status, returning that occupancy. For this one, instead of any kind of calculation where we're getting the average, we're just taking the maximum between the two detectors. So, statement 6 is that fail-safe, making sure occupancy is not sitting at 100%. And then 7 and 8 there, we're establishing that trigger point. And finally, those last 4 statements are combining all of those parameters to ultimately put in our pattern input. So here's just a look at the actual timings that are out there. We run a 180-second cycle length in the PM peak. So you can see phase 6 there gets exactly half that time at 90 seconds. So our alternate pattern 35 is actually a free plan. So we take it out of coordination. And I don't know how well it looks like it's not showing up, but the max time for phase 6 is actually 183 seconds. So that's more than double the typical time that's allocated. And it's basically mimicking like a 3-minute phase hold when this plan kicks on. So I put together a little time-lapse video here. This is probably also going to be a little blurry, but you can see on the left we've got our CCTV. This is at Medlock Bridge looking down the hill. And kind of in the very top right of that video is our Tech Park signal. So hopefully you can kind of keep an eye on the queues that are approaching. But our logic there is running in the bottom right. So statements 3, 4, 5 are going to be updating. These detectors are set to update every single cycle, so 180 seconds on the dot. And yeah, so we're getting that live feedback. So the thing to watch here too is, like in that top right of the video, those queues that are approaching, you can see right now they have storage space to move into. Should slow down here. Yeah, 427, we get our first update. Still at 11% occupancy, so below our threshold. I think this next cycle here at 430, we hit 18% for the first time this afternoon. And so as this side street cycles through, we're going to come up with our first 3-minute phase hold here. So yeah, there's pattern 35 kicking on in the controller, that window in the middle. And yeah, really what we're trying to do here is just limit those delays and prevent the gridlock conditions from forming. So the word fix is not a word we like to use in the timing industry. We can improve traffic delays, but fix is dangerous. So you're going to see we're not quite clearing all the queues with this plan. But what we're doing is limiting the delays. We're keeping it to a 1 to 2 cycle delay, and we're really just trying to prevent that queue spillback from reaching all the way through the lower half of our system. So that Google Maps in the top right, you can kind of see the heat map, and basically what this plan is designed to do is just limit and contain those delays to this specific area. So I'll skip through. We've got a little before and after here. You can see a huge decrease in the peak travel time, saving almost 5 minutes. And also, the big thing is not only decreasing that peak time, but also shortening the PM peak. So you can see the before is in the blue, after in green, and delays really start to die down closer to 6 p.m., where previously they're extending to 7 and 8 p.m. So yeah, this is just one example of user logic that we have running in our region. This dashboard was actually put together in the past 2 weeks, so it doesn't quite capture all of what we have running. I don't even think this project is on there right now. But this example was for a flush plan. We also have some incident plans running on our freeways. So when we pick up heavy demand, we can automate a pattern input for the whole corridor instead of just a flush plan at one signal. And then, yeah, we've also got just alternate plans focused on progressing traffic in different directions, favoring one movement or another. And then we've been putting in a lot of railroad preemption plans in Gwinnett County specifically. So going beyond just those basic preemption timings, we'll use user logic to time how long a train has been blocking the road, and then run a flush plan for a certain amount of time based on the road closure. So that's all I got. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks for reintroducing the great debate. What's the best detection? I think my hat's still video, but you chose loops. We'll debate that later. I just want to kind of open the floor up to questions to our great presenters here. So, anybody have any questions? Tom.
Catherine, just if you can do me a quick favor, can you define, you mentioned 3 things that are super cool tools that we use, but you didn't get to define them. Floodgate, Web AOC, and Rave, so I don't know that everybody knows what those are.
Right, can I get a mic check on this mic? Mic check. Mic. All right, mic check. Thank you, guys. All right, thank you, Tom, for the question. Floodgates are our messages that go out to the masses, so it's got sort of like a perimeter on it. So if there are vehicles within that perimeter, they get a text message, hey, there's an active crash going on. Please, seek a detour route if you're going in that area. That lets nearby motorists know, hey, might not want to sit in traffic for the 2 to 4 hours plus of delay. Our EOC is our Emergency Operations Centers. We usually use these whenever we've got major events like our winter storm events, or it's about to be hurricane season, so you guys might see those soon. But it just kind of lets everybody know, hey, we've got special operations, going to be different types of things going on. And then our rave alerts, they notify GDOT management as well as key stakeholders of events that are going on once they reach a certain status. So if we did have this tractor trailer with the fire, it's blocking all lanes for 60 minutes or more, or if we have something as serious as a fatality, those major GDOT communications and stakeholders get a notification. So thank you for the reminder, Tom.
Thanks, Catherine. Anybody else have any more questions? Up front.
The peak response action seems like such a no-brainer. Why was it not part of the original plan?
I really, sincerely don't know. That's a question we've had for a while, honestly, because it seemed like it just was logical to extend it to Acres Mill. So I'll go with it was waiting on us to help facilitate the project. That's why we manifested it. No, so but I can definitely follow up. I know there's folks on my team that would have some of that historical knowledge, but I'm just not sure. But send me an email. I can definitely follow up just for educational purposes.
Any other questions? No? Cam.
So good question. Her question was, what's next on the horizon for Acres Mill? So just, continuing to operate that ramp. Obviously, there was a ramp meter on the ramp as well for the northbound transition. So we've been making some refinements to that. And then we're also making some updates to Chameleon, which is the backup reversal system to integrate the south managed lane corridor as well. So when we did Acres Mill, we updated RACS and Chameleon, but we didn't update Chameleon for the south managed lane configuration. So we're in the process of doing that now, and then GDOT is also in the process of upgrading their current ATMS system as well. So there's a lot happening from the operations perspective, the ATMS and the various systems, and I think you know a lot, Kim. But good question, thank you. I think she was testing me with that question, so thanks, Kim.
Any more questions for the panel up here? All right, guys. Looks like we have finished just about on time. Not too bad. I do have, anybody needs them, PDH credits up front if you guys need to snag one of these guys. Otherwise, enjoy your break. I think we're back in here.